Okay, welcome to Wet Noodles is our tech podcast,
Oh yeah.
VR and related mainly, but we also talk anything tech and gaming, honestly. And a couple of
Hmm.
VR news for this week. Not going to be as massive news as last week because of GDC, but still a few things that came out this
Hmm.
week that maybe you'd be interested in talking about. So, first thing I actually want to get out of the way is the gaming week of VR for this week. It was a pretty big week for uh, like indie developed high quality games. We have Samurai Slaughterhouse that came out today, which was a indie
Hmm.
developed game. Um, for a while now, they've been showing off a lot of content, and that's definitely a very good VR game you should keep your eye on. I would definitely put that on the radar. That game is like a what do you call the art style of that? Like a black and white, like inked art style game they put in VR.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it looks fantastic.
Yeah. It's like definitely ink black and white.
Yeah, I really like when I see developers like play around with like the conception of like what you think you
Ideas
should
like that.
see, because it's like people when they make
Hmm.
VR games they think, okay, we got to make it realistic or something like that, right? And it's like there's a
Yeah.
lot of different ways you can access VR, right? You have games like Ancient Dungeon that's basically like Minecraft in VR, and it feels fantastic, right? So I
Hmm.
think it's really cool to see more developers play around with the that idea. Let's break the idea of VR has to be perfect and like the graphics have to be like realistic. You can make it elsewhere. You can teleport the player into a
Yeah.
different
You make it
world.
artistic. You can
Yeah,
make it different. You can make it something unique.
yeah.
You
I,
talking about that actually makes me think like we really no one's made a VR game that's like really something out there, something different. Like
mhm.
all the VR games we've seen, it's like okay, it's like traditional game stuff you expect, but then nobody's really done anything that's just like completely out there yet. That's like completely new and different. And I think VR has that unique ability to allow for that.
Yeah.
You know.
I think
Hmm.
I think we're starting to see more uniqueness too, especially from these indie developers.
For sure.
Um,
For sure.
which is good. I think one of the good things of VR is it's going to push the imagination of these games
Yeah.
and releases. So then
Yeah.
the other big release too for this week's crazy. There's two big releases. Is obviously Vertigo 2, which I was just playing a bit of.
Hmm.
Vertigo
Oh yeah.
2
How do you like it?
is yeah. I was gonna say like the big thing about Vertigo 2 is that it's a game developed by a single person, and I kind of want to get into his
Yeah.
story a little bit. And that's kind of what
Yeah.
boggles my mind, a lot of people's minds, is that like it is a Half-Life game. So Half-Life games are basically linear adventures that have a lot of complexity to it because usually you have to do some kind of puzzle mechanics. There's going to be fights that require
Yeah.
you to put in some strategy, probably a lot of weapons in the games. Right, this is kind of what you can expect from a Half-Life genre, and that's a lot. Like it's a lot of
Hmm.
to put in a game. It's actually a fully fledged game, which is something I want to mention too. Not a tech demo. It's actually like a game that has a lot of game in it. Like that's kind of the good thing about Half-Life type games genre, the Half-Life genre. And for one
Hmm.
person to make that is kind of what makes Vertigo so special. Is that you're just like, wow, like the game is fun. It looks incredible, and then you're like, wow, this guy, one person, right? So his story is,
Yeah.
from what
It's
I
insane.
know, is that Vertigo 1 was a very early release in VR, and it did very well because it was a very big game in VR. I mean, big. You can beat the game relatively quickly. I think you get like 10 hours ish in both games, which is still not
Hmm.
bad, especially given one person. And it's a pretty cheap game, right?
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
when he made that first game, he was actually 15. The game was released when he was 16. The guy was still in high school,
Oh.
like crazy.
Wow.
Labor of love. This guy
Insane.
was. It's a young mind that was, he put his mind to it, and his imagination. He wanted to make something fun, and like that's crazy. And the guy's born in 2000. Like that's amazing, right?
Hmm.
So his story is that he did so well with Vertigo 1 that after he graduated high school, Valve was still releasing the index. The index wasn't out yet. And they needed to contract workers to like make like tutorials. I think he worked on like the lab, which is one of their like free applications, right? So he was one of the people
Hmm.
contracted for this. And like for Valve to reach out to you, you need to be
Yeah.
pretty
It's pretty
impressive.
insane.
Like Valve, and I'll tell you this because I
Yeah.
know for a fact, since I've spoken with Valve managers and employees, they don't hire like people. Like they don't do that. Like they'll hire you if they say, okay, you worked at like Blizzard for 10 years, you worked at this. Like they'll hire you if you're like a known developer. They don't hire you if you're not. So like.
Yeah.
They knew this guy because he made such a crazy game, and he was so young, and they still gave him a contract. It was like, like you are smart, you can make something really unique and good for us. And the lab has a lot of cool puzzles and unique mechanics. I think you can kind of see his fingerprint on the game, which is good. We were gonna say go for it.
Oh, no, I completely lost it. So don't worry about it.
That's okay. So he does this, right? And keep in mind, this is a guy that just graduated high school, young guy. And he went to college after high school. He wanted to learn more, obviously, about this. And so he was going to college, and he was doing this contract with Valve, and he was doing Vertigo. Vertigo 2 was actually in development for a long time. I think he started in 2017. Vertigo 2 has actually been you kind of see it because it's one guy who made all that, so now you understand why it took so long. So he decided in 2020 to actually drop college, because that's actually also when his Valve contract was up, just to finish the game. So now you have this young guy that like has so much experience under his belt, doesn't even need college anymore because he has so much knowledge and experience already. And then he finished Vertigo 2 3 years later, and now we're 2023, and he's getting so much praise for it. The game is doing wildly successful, so good for him. It's such an inspiring story, and it's actually kind of feel good too, because then you think that the future of VR or future of gaming in general, I'd say, like it's in good hands. There's people out there.
It's becoming not even that. I think that speaks volume to how accessible game development is nowadays. Like one person can do it. Like it's still hard. Like it's still not easy, right? But then you can still do it. But there's plenty of like indie games out there that are developed by like 1 or 2 people. So I think it's definitely getting out there more. But I mean, it's you were speaking about like how Valve like hires and stuff like that, and that is like, it really is insane that guy got invited by Valve. Like because just to elaborate on what you're saying, it's like they literally like in their, I remember looking at their website, and then like where you go and apply. And they're just like, send us an idea or tell us about what you do or something like that. Like they don't want like traditional. They want you to come at them with like something actually like innovative or something like that for them to even have like interest in you.
That's his
like
ticket.
I think.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that really is like a major plus to Valve as well. And then really glad that guy had that opportunity, and I hope to, like, I'm still playing through the first Vertigo game, and I like it a lot. Like, honestly, as you're saying, it's like, it came out when VR, like, first came out. I think it's, like, 2016?
Yep, that's when the Oculus released. The Oculus released in 2016. That was the first consumer headset, and this game came out then. This teenager probably didn't have much access to VR, because given, like, what
bleeding
was out
edge of gaming.
Yeah, literally bleeding edge. That's actually a good way to put it. Like,
dude,
how this guy was doing.
One thing too, I mean, he kind of, then he's responsible for pioneering then how like some of the game mechanics as well. I feel like the gun feel and like some of the puzzling and like how the character moves, like all that stuff. Like I feel like if Boneworks had the movement of Vertigo, I think I would enjoy Boneworks like 10 times more.
Yeah.
Like Boneworks movement is the only thing that bothers me about that game. But anyways, like, and also like the first game, there's like honestly a couple parts that actually like scared me. Like I was actually like, oh shit, like looking for a way to run.
You felt like immersed,
run away.
I just had that feeling in the new one too, and I was playing like there's a
really
he coded this AI monster that like chases you. And
don't tell me.
That's all you got. That's all I'll say. There's a monster that chases you, and like
don't tell me too much.
It's crazy that I felt like literally my dad got to run from this thing. Right, like, that was pretty crazy. He did a good job giving you the like immersion, the feeling of certain things. I think he just understands VR well, is what I would say. So
I think I honestly agree with you on that. Because like that game's 2016. I'm playing it here in 2023, and like
in anticipation for a new one.
Like,
It's like one experience.
Yeah, but dude, I'm honestly impressed by that game. Like, I'm very impressed. I think just like in the realm, it's one of VR's best gaming titles. Like,
yeah.
you know, just everything about it feels really good. Like, I don't know how many of the weapons you got when you played through, but in the first game, there's like it's like an assault rifle, right? But it's got like almost like, you know how like they have like the charge where you can charge the gun, right? Like it's like you gotta cock it.
Yeah.
But that one has like a handle on either side, and when you push or pull it forward, it changes the gun from like an assault rifle to a sniper rifle.
Wow.
Like when you like push it forward, the barrel elongates. Like I think the stock comes out and a scope folds up.
It's pretty cool.
And then when you pull it back, like it all folds back into an assault. It's pretty cool. Like it's a very like that's a pretty awesome like gun mechanic actually. Like just like basic reloading and, you know, like charging a gun, you know, cocking the gun or whatever. Like it's pretty cool, but we've seen it all before, and this is actually something unique. So I think you speaking about like the Half-Life games kind of being like a break-in for like, or a breakout for gaming in that specific space, I think is pretty spot on, because like that is a game that gives you a totally unique feeling, and it's like, wow, I want more of this, and inspires other developers to also create and do more of that kind of thing. And yeah, I think it's great. I'm so happy that that guy made Vertigo too. You know, I was thinking it might be interesting to like try and see if he'd be interested, like see if we can entice him just to come and chat with us in VR chat.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Pick it
yeah, it's like, dude, we really enjoyed your game. You're a developer, you know. It's like, would you be interested in just chatting with us about VR? Like, and
I want to see his philosophies,
you know,
when it comes to game development. I want to see how his brain ticks, man.
Yeah, it's
crazy. It's inspiring on the things he's done now.
Yeah. I mean, the puzzles he makes are like really good. Like even in the first game, like the puzzles are pretty fucking good, and it's like simple, but then it's very creative. And man, yeah, like someone who like their brain can think like that is, man, those are like wizards, right?
Yeah.
We talk about like wizards and stuff like that. That's fucking wizardry, in my opinion. Yeah, like literally. So
let's
like the way they think is just different. Yeah.
Let's dive into what you were just mentioning before, because I never mentioned that yet. The breakout thing that you had quickly mentioned. So what I was saying was that if you look at like gaming history, let's look at a PC game specifically, but console gaming as well. The late 90s, it was late 90s, right? I think it was when Valve was making stuff like Counter-Strike, and specifically the Half-Life games, and there were other games that were like Half-Life, and they were breakout hits, and they were massive, and to this day, Gordon Freeman is like a big icon, even though honestly there hasn't been a game except for Half-Life Alyx with him in it for like 20 years plus, right? It's crazy that he's had that much influence. So what it feels like to me is that the Half-Life games are very inspiring back at its time. It created a lot of creativity, and a lot of other developers saw that and said, you know, we can add on to that, and they've made other games from it. And then in the early 2000s, you had games like Halo come out that revolutionized FPS gaming. You had like Morrowind come out in like a couple years later. I forget when that was. StarCraft was actually late 80s, late 90s, as well.
Late 90s, yeah.
So a lot of that stuff kind of started to bubble right after like the Half-Life genre came out, and you kind of stopped seeing Half-Life games once that happened, and it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. It's because a lot of developers started to get inspired. So I'm wondering if history is repeating ourselves here, where you're seeing a lot of Half-Life games on VR now. You're seeing the new Bone Lab, and they had Bone Works not far before. You had this game, Vertigo. You have like Compound. The Compound is kind of similar. You have a lot of these roguelikes that are kind of similar, linear FPS stuff, right? They were seeing a lot of these similar genre games in VR, and I think maybe we're seeing a repeat. Maybe it's these VR developers are starting to discover like what works, what ticks, and like they're going to inspire other developers, and then they're going to start making breakout stuff, right? Maybe we're on the same verge that PC was in their late 90s, early 2000s, right?
Yeah.
Do you think there's any merit to that? You think that maybe this is something that's happening right now? We're in this kind of like transitional stage?
I'm hoping so. Because I mean, like, so right now, the only Half-Life titles I would label on VR right now. Is like, okay, we have Alex, which is obviously Half-Life, and then we have the Vertigo series, Bone Labs, which you mentioned, and I think that's kind of it, right?
Yeah, other
Kinda
stuff
it.
like Bone, or sorry, other stuff like Compound and like Ancient Dungeon, or more on the
Well,
roguelike
Compound.
side. But they
Yeah,
still have
I
they
mean,
have still have
I'm thinking.
similarities to it. But yeah, I see.
Yeah. I hope so. I really hope so, and I hope we just see, like, I mean, you and me have talked about it before. I just hope we see more
Yeah.
creative stuff come out of like the VR space. Actually, you know, that kind of leads me to a question that I was thinking about earlier. Like, what would you say is the first game in VR that would really like blew you away, and you were, you know, made you really impressed with like VR?
Without a second doubt, Half-Life. Half-Life Alex was insane, incredible game.
Was Half-Life Alex the first VR game you played?
No. I've been playing VR since 2016, but no, Half-Life Alex was the first game that made me realize like there's more to this. It's not just gaming, but like what I felt like when they made Half-Life Alex, they didn't make it like VR was a background thing. It wasn't like, I feel like a lot of games, they make a game and then like VR is just tacked on, or VR is kind of like a feature.
Yeah, it's like an afterthought.
They like with Half-Life Alex, I felt like this game was made for me to touch. It was made for me to grab, you know, and that's kind of like, it feels like a dumb concept, but yeah, obviously the game should be made for you to touch if you're in VR, but it's harder than you think, and a lot of developers can't get that right, and I felt like that was the first time that I felt like the game was made for me, you know. I feel like it was made, because in a sense it was made for the person to be there. The developers at Valve just have a really good...
I mean, that world is fucking tangible. It's a tangible world in VR, and that's an insane thing. Like, everyone I've ever talked to about gaming, and everyone that's ever asked me either like what's my favorite game or what's VR, it's hard for me to say anything but Half-Life Alex, because like I have never in my life had I ever had an experience like that.
Yeah.
Like that the thing I'm so disappointed is that I can't have that experience again.
Yeah.
You know, for the first time again,
yeah.
until someone creates something new. And that's the biggest sadness. But yeah, holy shit, like that was incredible. Like, yeah, it's definitely something insane. And absolutely everyone who has any interest in gaming at all, I hope that they can play Half-Life Alex in a way that it is meant to be experienced. Because I feel bad for people playing Half-Life Alex without fingers.
Yeah.
You know,
with the index,
I honestly feel bad for for people who don't have that first time experience with that. So, but then you know, for me, like I had a CV1. I had a buddy in China, in Shenzhen. He does a lot of developing. He makes the North Star project. North Star. I was talking about that open source AR headset. But he had a CV1 that he let me borrow for a while. And I remember experiencing just the first like VR game I really played right was one where it's like you're just in a white space, you know, it's just empty, and you have like a table in front of you, and wherever you look, you can spawn like a cube, right? But then the thing is if you like, you can create a bunch of shit, but then you can also look down. There's a table, and the table is actually like a map of the world, so you can create on the table as well, and it makes blocks appear around you, and then you can like make them blow up in slow motion and stuff like that. Like that's the very first thing I ever played in VR. But then the first game that I would say that actually like blew me away and was like holy like shit is did you ever play a game called I think it's called Fisherman's Tale or something, or the Fisherman's Lighthouse or something like that?
Fisherman's, no, I don't think
I'll have to look up the name.
Yeah.
The game is really, really cool because it's like you're basically in a lighthouse, and you're it's kind of like an escape room almost type of deal. But the thing is like in the room you're in the middle, there's a table with a model of the lighthouse, and then you do a couple things and you remove the top of the lighthouse, and you can see yourself in the lighthouse like tiny. But then if you stick your hand down at yourself and you look up, you can see a gigantic hand.
That's trippy.
Like in your face.
Yeah.
It is insane. Like it's crazy. And so the whole game is all about these puzzles that it's just like thinking like, okay, large to small, small to large, because you can take like a tiny ladder you find somewhere and put it in the model house, and then just put a big ladder in your space for you to use, you know. And then the game goes through. Like, I highly recommend everyone try that game, because that was like, for me, that was like, holy shit, man, VR is like, this is something truly new and unique that we haven't ever experienced.
Super creative, that kind of
and then that was the first time I was like, this is gonna allow me to experience things that I never thought possible. Like that was that eye-opening experience for me. So, have you ever done like VR where you have like a huge space? What is it? There's a name for that, right? What is it called?
The place that doesn't near me, they call themselves the Warehouse. I don't think it's the same.
Right.
I think it
well,
depends,
those are the companies, right? But they have a
Yeah.
name for like playing VR in that style. But
Shared
I
space?
did
I
it
don't
multiple
know.
times. No, it's I forget what it's called. Open Space VR or something like that. I forget. But then I did it several times in Shenzhen. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Because like a couple of the companies producing their own like VR headsets in China, like the factories and stuff, they opened up these places where it's basically like just trying to get the public interested in VR, and it's like a bar, and they have like pool tables and shit like that, and then they have these huge rooms where like you can have like 6 to 8 people playing a VR game collectively, but everyone wears a backpack with a laptop in it.
Yeah, that's funny.
And like you have their headset and you have like a gun or something, and it's crazy. Like it's pretty. The equipment that they had is all like the cameras, you know. It's like the cameras, you got to wear the white dot things or whatever.
The mocap stuff, yeah.
You have a couple of those. Yeah. It's pretty fucking accurate. Like, you won't run into each other like that. So I've played several games like that. I've played like Counter-Strike style, like deathmatch, like team deathmatch type game like that, which is really fun because you have huge space and just imaginary objects all around you, right?
Yeah, that's pretty
And
cool.
then yeah, we did like a zombie like shooter. We've done several of those where it's like you're in a like a street or something, and it's endless waves till you die. And that one's weird too, because it's like at one point you just start like, at some point you just start kiting all the zombies, and you're running around like all 4 walls of the room.
You're actually running
You're
too,
just
that's
circling,
funny.
dude.
You do
Yeah,
the
you're
ray
actually
training.
running. So like I had to, and one time I remember the first time I did it, like all my friends died, and I was like telling them to get into the middle of the room so I could fucking run around and kite all the zombies. But then the coolest experience though I had, right, was actually a dungeon crawler, where like each person had to pick a class. So I was the mage, and you're literally the mage, and you're literally like walking through a maze, and it's like pitch black. So as the mage, my wand emitted light, so I have to like, you know, lead the way, and then in the end
It's a
you have to
whole
like
team effort,
fight
yeah.
a huge dragon. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, it's a pretty cool experience. So I think I want to see more of that kind of stuff too, you know.
That'd be cool, yeah.
Like, I think that stuff's pretty cool.
Well, that's some good things to think about. I think that's great. There's another bit of news here to cover that I think is somewhat important to VR. So kind of on the flip side here, that was some pretty good positive talks. Now we have some negative stuff to talk about, unfortunately, in the VR space. So
Yeah.
I've discussed this with you, so I'll give you a little recapper. This week,
Yeah.
Apple, right? Obviously, Apple company, announced their developers conference, or whatever. They do it every year around the summertime. They usually announce like a new product sometimes, like maybe it's usually like one of the Macs. I think they do like the computers, and then they obviously also show off like new programs that they do, because it's for developers, so they show off like their software. So this year, they did the announcement, and the picture they used looked like some VR lenses. That's what they looked like. And then everybody was going bonkers, because Apple's been rumored to be working on a headset for a very, very long time. And it's been rumored to be a VR headset that can be used for gaming. So like, it's actually like, pretty useful for the consumer. It's not a hunk of junk. So like, it's been, people have been very hyped for it, because Apple's a company that doesn't really make enthusiast devices. Like, they make devices that are proven. So it's very interesting for them to be in this market. Like, this is not the market they would be in. So people have been really raring to see what they'll make. So that was the announcement on this week. It's gonna be like June 5th or something like that. He'd be like, damn, they're about to announce it, right? June 5th. And then the day after, literally the day after, I don't remember the exact days this week it happened, but literally the day after, a report came out that not only is their headset announcement being delayed, so most likely to the end of the year now, they've been delaying it already. It's just like the third time. So the rumors from it being announced this summer is gone now. But the reason for the delay, and this is something that maybe you can chime on because I'm not sure what's up with this, is a business decision by Apple that they actually lost confidence in this market. They don't think that VR is a good market for them anymore. They don't think that they can profit from it, I guess. They don't think there's enough interest in it or something. I don't know what that is, but it has something to do with their confidence with the market is low, and they might not even release the headset in the end of the day if they don't think so by that time. Do you know, like, why a company would come to this conclusion, like a big manufacturer like that? Like, what's up with that? You know, like, have any thoughts on that?
So I think a couple things. One, we've seen that the PSVR 2 sales have been abysmal, and it's not been doing very well at all in that regard.
I don't think that's a good subset, but we can discuss that later. But I do understand, but I feel like PSVR is a bit. It was not surprising that it had those numbers, but continue.
I agree with you on that, but then that leads to a lot of things, because the PSVR 2 not selling well is also a sign of how like current socioeconomic situations are, which I don't want to get too much into because I think it distracts. But you know, people just don't have disposable income. Like right now, it's not really a great time to be releasing an expensive device to the public, because not many people can afford it. You know, it's going to be even harder, and it is the last thing people are going to be thinking about too. You know, VR headset over anything else, literally, to be honest. But then for the average consumer, right? But then, so I think it's partially that, you know, Microsoft, Meta, and who else have all kind of like fallen off and kind of like given up on like the virtual space, right? A little bit, because I think I know Microsoft straight up gave up, right?
Yep.
And then Facebook, Meta is giving up on like Horizon and their social stuff, basically, right?
Well,
like,
that's
really backpedaled.
That's rumored
on a lot of stuff. Yeah. Well, no. I'm not saying that. There's been articles where like they're talking about Microsoft, Meta, and someone else. They're all kind of and maybe Apple too. They're including Apple in this conversation. But then I think whatchamacallit, like, I think it's kind of a scary thing to get into right now for Apple. But then, you know, my personal opinion, like what I think, what I honestly think, at least my tinfoil hat theory, right, is that I think maybe they saw some of the new headsets coming out, right, like XR Elite and the big screen and like the Quest Pro and all that stuff, right? And maybe they don't have those features or haven't been thinking about those features or something, you know, or they're maybe, you know, they got too pigeonholed in one aspect, and then they don't have all the other features that are becoming standard in VR now, in the VR space now. And so they're like, well, shit, we gotta redo our whole strategy, because they've been working on this headset for a long time.
If you have like in the manufacturing world, if you have like all that stuff, like the designs and stuff like that down, it is tough to like change it and add things, right? Like it's a lot of work to do changes, like big changes too. It
like
might already be obsolete, right, at this point. Like,
yeah, exactly. Exactly. It might already be obsolete, so they're having to scrap their whole thing and be like, shit, we got to start over. And so maybe that's what it is. And I think that would be a wise decision, because like the market situation, they're behind, and that gives them time to just like work on it in the background. And then when the economy and stuff recovers and it's a better situation just altogether, then maybe they'll redo it, you know? So I hope. I mean, I would love to see Apple's entry into the space.
I'd love to see any entry, honestly, and them being a big company is a big boon for sure. But like, yeah, you're right. It makes sense. So
I honestly feel like from what I know of Apple, because Apple likes to get super focused on like one or two feet, like one or two very specific things. I mean, like with iPhone, they chase the glass, like Gorilla Glass and all that stuff. They chased that rabbit hole so deep. They had the Sapphire or whatever by the end of it, and then they had like factories and stuff that they were opening up, like just to make these and stuff like that. And then it turned out to be kind of like a worthless endeavor for them, to be honest. Like the glass stuff is kind of nothing's really using it, right? And then I think that Apple tends to kind of do that. So I think in the VR space, I think they probably did that, and then now they're stuck.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, on the topic of obsoleteness and how a headset should look in 2023, but it's been all but confirmed that the Apple headset that they would be releasing, who knows when now, is going to actually have a secondary part of it, like almost like a battery pack that you strap to your waist and is wired to the head.
I saw that. They have pictures or something of that, right?
It's basically widely accepted that is actually what their design is. It's not a rumor. It's beyond that. It's So the headset will be wireless, but wired to your hip, basically. And so what they're arguing is that this is going to actually allow it to be a lot more powerful, because now you have this separated block that does all the power, as well as more battery, right? And that's also a huge thing, because the Quest 2 and even the Quest Pro has terrible battery life, right? The question becomes, though, and this is something that you might want to chime on, is, okay, sure, there's good pros to it, but like, do you think a headset that looks like that people are going to want to use? Like, do you think that's actually practical? Now that we have these tiny big screen headset, right, the big screen one, the XR Elite's pretty small too. It's like, do you think people are going to look at that implementation and be like, I want that, or no? Like, it feels like, I don't know, maybe that might be a turnoff, or maybe that's one of the reasons too. What do you think?
Like, I'm very curious about your opinion on this exact thing as well. But like, me personally, I don't really mind the idea of it, because I think like it could be done well to where the cable wouldn't bother you much. Like they can find a way, to make it so the cable is like kind of out of your way. Maybe just like a basic strap that you wear, and the cable just threads through it, and then it's not an issue. It's just, it's like out of your way. But then, and I do like it does allow for a large battery. It does allow for more power, and it allows for like a much lighter headset. So if they can do something like big screen, like that, with the wire going down to your just like a hip pouch or something like that, I'm on board. I don't mind. But I think the wider public, consumer public, they're gonna look at that and be like, what the fuck? I honestly think the wider public is gonna be like that.
That's my main concern, is that is how it's going to be conceived. It's not so much how I think about it, because I think for at least me, and maybe for most people even, the biggest pro of that is exactly what you're saying, the form factor. Imagine the big screen beyond is this, the big screen beyond is this tiny ass thing that's smaller than like my finger. Like, imagine they're able to put crazy power into this tiny thing that you barely feel on your head. It's lighter than a banana, they were saying.
Think about the Steam Deck, right?
Yeah, but like that is afforded because of the fact that they have this wire that attaches to your head. So to me, I look at that and I'm like, that's awesome. Like, I'm not going to feel it. I'm going to be able to be very free. But then again, they're going to want to attract non-VR players who maybe are looking into VR, but it's not a good time because the prices and like headsets are kind of at this time. And they're going to look at this headset. Sure, it's Apple, but then they're going to see this wire connected to this guy's hip. It's like, what the heck is he doing, right? To someone who's from the outside looking in, they might not like that, right? And that's my main concern.
No, definitely. People who don't have experience with VR and don't know much about it aren't going to be impressed by that.
Yes.
Like, that's just kind of basic fact. It's very tacky. Like, it definitely is very tacky.
Well, the idea of it
makes you think like way back what. Yeah. But then, like, at the same time, I think it could be done properly, like in a way that like they could bring it to the market as like an accessory, or like or something like that. And I think that could help build it, because people who get it and like it are going to be like, holy shit, this is amazing. Like they should all be doing this. You know, this should be the standard or whatever. You know, it gives people more of a it gives people more of a chance without strength. But it then again, to make something like that as like an accessory and sell it secondary is kind of asking a lot, and it's a lot of work as well. You know.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, this is Apple we're talking about, and I'm sure that whatever they do want to make, they're not going to want it to make it look tacky. They're going to want to make it look quality.
Yeah.
It's, again, Apple, they're stuck up how they are. So at the end of the day, we won't know until we see it. This is all just speculation, and things are being delayed, and hopefully we do see it one day. And I'm sure they're going to put, like, a lot of work into it. They don't release products that are like not intentional. They don't release something that has bugs in it and then there's like that wasn't intentional. I mean, I don't want to give too much credit to Apple. They have their own fair share of issues. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just trying to say that they're not a company that
they're not perfect.
This is not a company that does enthusiast products for that specific reason. So it's weird that they're doing this in the first place. So I'm interested to see a company that's so stuck up that they wouldn't do this kind of stuff actually doing it. I want to see what they create. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Apple's all about emergent spaces, and then they're all about like, because I think Apple is like, I kind of feel like they're like corporate, like big corporate Valve, you know, kind of feel to me as far as like, I don't know, because like it's not as focused and as because Valve is like a collect, like they go out and they're collecting specific people, right? Whereas Apple is definitely a much wider net. But I think the people within Apple are also like interested in chasing innovative things, you know. So I can, you know, I do think that them doing it is not too surprising to me, and I can see because they do try a lot of stuff. I mean, they made the pen and all that, like watch I think is kind of like a weird thing, and it's like a unique new thing or something like that, right? So but we'll see. I guess we'll see.
Well, anyways, that concludes my topics. If you have anything else, go for it. If not, we can end it off here. How you feeling?
I think one thing is worth chatting about a little bit is also kind of sad news as well. Is the E3 being canceled?
Ooh, yeah. E3 being canceled. That was just recent.
Yeah, I think that's worth kind of like touching on because it's unfortunate. It like, I mean, you said it perfectly. It's the end of an era. You know, E3 has been going on since I was like a little kid. I remember like wishing I could go, and
same with me.
It's gone now. Like it's gone now. That was like the only like, I think that was like the first big gaming show, like the gaming and electron, you know, that kind of related trade show. And it's crazy that it's over now, I guess.
It's kind of a sign of the times. I feel like a lot of things are moving digitally and people are being more independent, and there's a lot of other factors in play too. Travel is not appealing anymore to the general public. A lot of things are more expensive, so I feel like I feel like it's par for the course. It sucks at the same time, though. I don't think it's super surprising, and I don't have much to say about it.
Okay, but what about you've been to shows like GDC and stuff like that, right? Like
AW,
kind of a similar vein. You know?
I guess, but they're so weird because they're more like trade shows, so there's gonna be businesses there.
Oh yeah.
Whereas
more
E3
business related, whereas E3 was more of a show.
It's a spectacle, and that kind of garnered consumers, and that was a good thing because then consumers had an event. Whereas I think other ones like AWE and even GDC, it's game development in its name. It's more so like it's a development collective, like it's a collection base of knowledge. Everyone that goes there probably has a stake in that industry, right? GDC, they probably have a stake in the game development industry, and it's still cool for people to look at GDC like who are gamers. But, oh, that's a cool game coming out, or NVIDIA's making this cool technology that's going to help them with their own computers. Or, oh, that's awesome, right? But like, that's not like that's not consumer based. Like NVIDIA showing off DLSS 3 is sick for a consumer to say, oh wow, cool, my computer can run better soon. But they're not going to be hyped for that. They're not. NVIDIA's not trying to make money off of that person,
I agree.
right? They're more so showing it for game developers,
for industry,
that are going to be using it, right? So that's
I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
I mean, at the very least, we have the like Game Awards, you know, like at the end of the year.
Yeah, there's something
Whatever.
to talk about and bring us
So
together.
yeah,
Yeah, agree with that.
So there's still some stuff. But,
Mhm.
but
Anything else for you
that's all I
today,
got.
Wes?
Yeah.
Yeah. No worries.
I think that's yeah.
Good discussions today. Thanks for indulging. We should come up with an outro here. Something to do with noodles. What noodle did you have today?
Something. Okay, so you know, I was cooking just earlier, right? I was making noodles.
Yep.
And so in China, they have these type of noodles. It's like literally translated, it's hot dry noodle. We were talking to you
Hot
about the
dry
other day.
noodle.
So I was just cooking that. Yeah, I was cooking it up. So you gotta like, it's worth trying. It's a really nice really nice dish. It's kind of like a soybean based sauce on the noodles. And what you do is you like cook them, and then they cook and make noodles and then dry them out, right? And then they just heat them up real quick, like when you want it, and add in all the sauces and stuff, and you mix it all, and it's really good. It's really fucking
I
good.
love all the sauces
Hot
and
dry
spice.
noodles.
I love
Yeah,
it. I'll have to try
go look hot dry noodles up on Google.
I'll have
It's
to
really
do that
fucking
too.
good.
Have to send me some.
Yeah.
All
Hell
right,
yeah.
Thank you, Wes. Let's go cover this camera now. We're done. It's over. Bye-bye. Oh, wait, where's my... There it is.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
It's over here. Just put it...